Welcome, everybody. My name is Reverend Shirley Lytle, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Bellevue, Washington. And today I have two lovely ladies that are here with me in honor of Juneteenth. We are talking about the challenges that we're having and they're having as it relates to the pandemic and being a parent in this time. We welcome everyone to kind of join in this process because the whole goal is to reach traditional and non-traditional families, which means aunts, uncles, moms, dads, grandparents that are actually out there doing the best they can to help the children become better and become more empowered in this world today. So at this time, I'd like to introduce my two individuals that are helping me with this panel. And I'd like to introduce Shari D. Powell. She's a teacher at Fairwood Marshall Elementary School in Seattle Public Schools for the past 22 years. She has a master's in education in addition to being rated for over the last 10 years as a distinguished teacher leader, who has a strong background and training in gifted instructional practices. Shari has participated in several leadership positions within the school district that help to mentor colleagues as well as coordinate and facilitate various professional development for staff. She is a second grade academic teacher leader at her school, and she supports the growth of collaboration and instructional practices through the school community. As a distinguished teacher leader, her intention is to improve educational outcomes for the students, especially students of color, whom are the furthest from educational justice. Shari has 3 boys, Jay, 14, Jordan, 12, and Seth, 8. Next, I'd like you to meet Tanisha Hurt. She is a businesswoman, wife, and former secondary educator for 5 years from Jacksonville, Florida. Tanisha attended Florida A&M University. She has a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in English and a master's of applied social service in public administration. Tanisha also receives an additional graduate degree in adult educational specializing in training and learning performance from Capella University. Tanisha has served professionally as a family service counselor, office manager, financial aid officer on the collegiate level, and an educator. Although a current stay-at-home mom, Tanisha utilized her education experience in 2018 to homeschool her then 3rd grade son, who has learning and sensory processing challenges. Tanisha today has added the title of entrepreneur to her list of professions, officially opening her greeting card and stationery business, Naomi Ruth Expressions LLC, on June 6th of 2020, which promotes healthy friendships among women and girls. Tanisha has 2 children, Taylor, 11 and a half, and Clay, 10 years old. So what we'd like to do is have some discussions today about some of the challenges and some of the victories, and potentially help give you some insight as to how normal and as well as how challenging this organized chaos we call this pandemic has become. So ladies, let's get started. What's it like to balance learning as a teacher and a parent and as a businesswoman? Tanisha.
It's very difficult. It's challenging. Initially, I think for me, having an educator background, I thought it would be fairly easy.
Yeah.
I only thought it would take maybe or extend out maybe 2-3 weeks. And then from there, it went to 6 weeks. And so initially I thought it would be, okay, this is a piece of cake for me because I've been in this space before, particularly with my son.
Mm-hmm.
Communicating with his teachers, I found that there were some things that we needed to work on. For example, writing conventions, some of his math skills, things like that. So I said, okay, if we're going to be out for 3 to 6 weeks, Those are things that I will target and work on, because at this point we didn't have a curriculum, we didn't have a plan, directed by the school at least. Correct. So I came up with my own. I pulled out most of my resources that I already had at home and came up with some things for him. Probably, and I will say for my daughter Taylor, who is a sixth grader, I created some stuff for her. Mm-hmm. Went to one of the online sites for schooling and just downloaded some stuff for her. And probably in week 4 is when we started to kind of get more communication from the school. Okay, this is what our plan is. Look for this in the next coming days or what have you. And then I knew the plan would change. Right. So this was going to completely shake the new schedule that I set in place for my son, who struggles with transitions. Mm-hmm. And that is a part of the sensory issues that he has. Transitions are difficult. So you need to, make him aware, prep him, and maybe the first couple of days you end up in, trial and error, see what works. Right. So, that created an overwhelming sense of frustration for me, because I found that I needed to create a lot of breaks for him. I was not familiar with Microsoft Teams, which was one of the platforms that was used for setting up, instruction with the teachers. Zoom I'd used maybe once or twice, but this was totally new for the kids. Yeah. And even still, my son, he's in private school. So his school kind of took full steam ahead a lot sooner than my daughter's public school district. Wow. She had been out of school a full month and a half, maybe 2, before we actually had a concrete idea and plan in place and set up on Teams, and this is what you're doing. The grading policy was frustrating, and they changed their mind like twice. So what to say to the kids, and how to explain those parameters to them was very confusing, because I didn't quite understand it myself as a parent. And I understand having that educator background is frustrating for the teachers too, because now the demand on the teachers is even more strenuous. It's asking them to become more flexible beyond the scope of when they're normally working. Right. So it was challenging for everyone, and I understood that. However, dealing with the son with special learning needs, it added another level of stress. The stress was just unbelievable. And so he had some episodes of acting out. Mm-hmm. So implementing breaks was that key. Little miniature snacks, allowing him to use putty or slime or something as we work, kind
of adjusting to whatever was happening in the moment. Mm-hmm. So that you could adjust to how he was feeling. Mm-hmm. Because all of this seems to be odd and strange, and yet somewhat a little normal, because I'm with mom. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shari, what was happening for you? Because you're actually in the system. Yeah. You're actually teaching kids remote.
When we first found out about it, our principal came over the loudspeaker and said, "Check your emails at 12:15." And I'm in the middle of teaching, and the kids were, "Miss Kyle, check that." I said, "Okay, let's finish our math lesson." And then she made another announcement. It's an emergency. Everyone needs to check their. And I said, "Okay." So I had another grandfather in the classroom mentoring. I said, "Mr. G, you hold the class, let me run." So they said, "Oh, we will be closing early today." And I said, it was already a Wednesday early dismissal. And I said, "The kids go to lunch at 12:30, and then we leave it at 2:10, however," because the kids didn't come back till 1:25. And I said, "Oh, I had 30 minutes." So I'm like, "Okay." He said, "Please grab worksheets, a packet together to get for the kids for 2 weeks worth." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I'm ripping and running.
Wow.
The kids are like this, and Matt, what's wrong? I said, oh, nothing. Let's try to decompose those numbers. And I'm like flipping and flying, and the teacher next door opened the door. Can you watch my class? I'm going to make copies before everyone comes down. I said, you can't leave. I got this class. She's like, ah. So she said, okay, I go to lunch break. She was first grade. So she went to lunch 5 minutes before I did. I said, okay. So she goes in. I'm standing there, like 10 teachers. I said, ah. So I said, okay, let me try to eat some. So I'm ripping and running, trying to eat, getting packets together, reading, and oh yeah, they need reading, writing, some science. So I finally go in there. Line is still long. 5 teachers are like, hurry, my lunch ends in 5 minutes. So I go to the main office, and the secretary, don't even think about using our printer. And I'm
Wow.
like, I beg of you, please. And I said, whatever you please. And they said, okay. So I stuck my packet, and the packet was maybe this big. I thought I'll keep it for 2 weeks. So then that happens. I said, phew, I can't believe. The kids are like, what's going on? I said, I'm sorry, we're going to close due to the pandemic. How long? I said, it's only 2 weeks. I'll see you at the end of March. And it was March 11th. And the kids, okay. I said, I'm going to miss you. I'll give them hugs. I said, don't forget your library books. Okay, fine. I said, when we come back, we get to go to the field trip to the Pacific Northwest Ballet. And they were so happy. Yeah, fine, like that. And then we had the staff meeting workshop, and we're listening, and everyone's looking at each other like, you think it's going to be longer? No. It's just 2 weeks until Governor Inslee opens it back. I'm okay. So we go back home. 2 weeks happen. I'm emailing parents every day. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? 7th day of doing that, about 12 of my parents said, Ms. Powell, no offense, stop sending emails. My emails, you're flooding us, too much information. We don't need to know about nature vision. I'm not going online and looking virtual. So I'm trying to give them science and nature vision. Go out in your yard. But they said, we live in an apartment. What yard do you think we see?
There you go.
So I was like, oh, I'm assuming they can go out with a magnifying glass, look at nature.
Yeah.
Parents just broke it down to me and said, first of all, we live in an apartment. 2-bedroom, I got 4 kids. There's no way we can go outside. I don't trust them going outside. There's no landscape by us.
Right.
Another parent, look, the father's not in the home. I'm by myself. I lost my job, furloughed. I just found out I got furloughed, so I have to try to work at Amazon. That's in Kent. So the neighbor's keeping so-and-so. So they're just looking at videos all day.
Wow.
A lot of them were telling me, we're not even looking at the email. So I started putting reader receipts. Like, oh, okay, I'll see who's getting the information. So I have 25 students, 2 reader receipts. Everyone else just deleted them. And that's all this hard work, all this information, resources I'm putting together. Then that time I found out my mom kept saying, I don't feel good. I said, where have you been? Oh, just the supermarket and went to church, yada, yada, yada. And then they rushed her to the hospital that week before we were supposed to come back. And then Governor Inslee extended it. Again, so my mind is in the hospital, and my brother and sister going on, my dad, we're trying to figure out what's going on. And my dad said, I don't want her, she's going to catch coronavirus. And I said, oh, she's fine. I said, I just had a slight headache, and I couldn't breathe very well. And then we're waiting for the test, and I'm trying to do lesson plan. On the other hand, my son, who's 14, he wants to be on there. Oh, but Mom, I'm on the internet. I said, okay, I have the app on all of my electronics from my
There you go.
6th grader, my 8th grader,
Mhm.
because they want to just go on YouTube and subscribe to every email or every video they see. So Bark alerts me like, oh, James on the computer for 6 hours looking at YouTube videos of basketball, LeBron James, or science project.
Not doing that homework though.
No.
Okay,
no.
there you go.
So I said, let me check. I'm not even doing. I'm worried about Mom and my lesson plan. So now I got to flip and get them together. But Mom, they say we're going to pass anyway. And I said, don't take that attitude. We have to do this. And so I said, right then and there, I said, organized chaos. Just like Pastor Lytle said, I said, that's it. So I made a schedule. Okay, you go outside for an hour. Remember, what? This is not fair. All my friends are on the computer looking at videos. And I said, we have to get on the schedule because I was going crazy. Kept calling up to the hospital. How's my mom? Oh, her oxygen went down. I said, did you get a pulse up? We found out she had a infection and we're going to try antibiotics. I said, what? Oh, this from, I'm like, does anybody there have coronavirus? And she said, well, we haven't had the results back. So I'm dealing with that. And my dad saying, we got to pray. Everybody make sure you're praying. And then flip, do lesson plan. and trying to get back parents, I started not sleeping. I was up till 1 o'clock trying to figure out, okay, if I email everybody, then everyone gets out of the way. And I put reader receipts. Still, parents are still deleting. And then on top of that, Seth is, my 8-year-old, washing his hands so much and sanitize, his skin just started to peel. And I said, oh.
Anxiety. He's starting to have some
anxiety. He's
Yeah.
like, Mom, my sock touched my hand. I'm going to catch coronavirus. And I said, what is, it's too much. I was like, getting ready to explode. It was too much. And my middle child was so close to my mom. All of the kids were close, but Jordan, he's like, Mama. And they would always sit in his lap. I said, you're too big to sit in Mama's lap. He was like, Mom, you hear from Mama today? I'm like, no. He would have his cell phone on his pillow. And I would put the cell phone, you hear from Mama? And I said, no, I didn't hear. Today I'm going to call. Call, that's your mom. Don't you care? So he started internalizing. I just thought it was, I'm like, okay, hey, Terry, did you talk to, hey, I'm talking to my brother. I said, no, I'm going to go up there. They won't let him come there. We have the right to go up there. I'm like, I'm going to go up there. Yeah. So then all this is going on. My principal, a parent notified me and said, you just, giving her so many emails. Can you just kind of just I said, I have no direction. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk to them every day. I don't know if I'm supposed to give them lesson plans every day, resources, all these attachments. And
so you're telling me in the middle of this pandemic, they're telling you to be organized, but yet relaxed while you were dealing with a situation with your mom being in the hospital. Yes. And I'll allow you to go to that degree if what you feel comfortable.
Yes.
But also trying to be a teacher, be a mom, and also be a teacher at home.
Yes.
Right?
Tough.
And it's tough. But yet I'm looking at two women that were making it happen. I mean, we are strong Black women that we live with diversity every day. I mean, that's just an honest truth.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily saying it that we have all the grace and style all the time, but we know how to get something done.
Yes.
And I see us balancing all of this stuff, and yet feeling some kind of way sometimes that, are we setting our children up to succeed? But what I want you to recognize and realize and understand that we are doing the best we can with the information we have at the time.
Yes.
And so I applaud you because, believe it or not, you're far more aware and above the curve than some of the other individuals out there that don't even have your skill set, right? So can you imagine, you've got a teacher's background, you've got an education background, and to be honest with you, guys have very busy schedules. I know that for a fact. And you're still making it happen. And so I do applaud you for that. But I also know it has not been a cakewalk, because both of you just told me that you thought it was going to be one thing for 2 weeks. And now how long have we been out? How many weeks now?
Oh my
goodness. Almost 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I also see the dynamic of what's been happening, whether you are the teacher out of the home, or whether you're the teacher in the home and trying to keep stuff going. Yeah. So I really do commend you for that effort. And so for those of you out there that are trying to make it happen, remember, it's not about you doing this perfect. It's about you taking the time and the energy and applauding yourself for doing what you can. I mean, it struck home for me when you made that statement about the mom that says, hey, I've got 4 kids, I'm in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm not letting them out of the house so you can do a nature experience.
Right.
The dynamic of our households are dynamic, and they're different. And there's single parents, like I said before, there's a grandma, and she's going to work and leaving the child with grandpa, who forgot to check and see if she checked in so that she made attendance. Because there was a point where the school system went from, okay, we're just going to be pass or fail, to, oh no, you're about to get a grade.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How you guys have been managing that?
Well, for us, as I stated, in the beginning, my focus was on my son, for many reasons. because I felt like, okay, I have a 6th grader, she's self-sufficient, she's all about school, anything school and academic related, you know, we don't have to hound her to get it completed. She wants to start it, get it done, and so on, okay? But she's never had this homeschool thing put into her, thrown at her the way it has been. And so my focus for those first couple of weeks was on Clayton. And I was working with him. I was very stressed out because I felt like, you know, even as a mom and as an educator, I wasn't sure about what the expectations were for us as parents with, you know, schooling the kids now. So I wasn't sure if they were going to ask for copies of stuff, or, you know, that we have to prove that, you know, the kids are working, they are, you know, completing things. So I was taking photos of, if I had Clayton write sentences or write his name or do a paragraph or whatever, I was taking photos with my iPhone and emailing it to his math teacher, to his homeroom teacher, and all of that, not knowing what anyone else was doing.
Sure.
So in my eyes, it was working. But then when he hit a brick wall, and he and I are like, you know, I'm getting that resistance from him now after like 2 weeks, and he's like, okay, I've had enough, you know. And so it's like, Clay, come on, get up out of bed, and this thing, you know, and that restriction, that resistance, stressed me out. So again, all my focus is on him. How do I get him going? How do I motivate him? What are the things to change? And all of this, you know, at this point, I'm not even talking to him about grades. I'm not even concerned about that part. I just want him to be motivated to do the work. And then on my end, I'm stressed out because I want to prove to the teachers I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a parent at home. And so, you know, for a long time, I was stressed out because I was inflicting that on myself, like, oh, I'm not performing well. I'm not getting the most out of him. Some days we would only get one assignment completed because we're, you know, hitting each other head to head, or he's just not in it today. And some days it take everything for me to get out of bed to want to do it. Because it's like, oh gosh, here we go again. Okay. Meanwhile, my 6th grader, I'm thinking she's getting her laptop and she's doing what she's doing. I check her, our district account, and she has nothing logged for PE.
Wow.
Now PE, you can hula hoop, you can stretch, you can do anything.
You can walk around the house,
walk the steps in the house. You can do push-ups, whatever. You basically, and to be quite frank, okay, let's just call it what it is. It's PE. They want you to log what your activity is. I told her, I said, Taylor,
you can't even get it out.
You don't even have to, and I'm not encouraging this behavior, but all the lady wants you to do is log in what your activity has been, honey. You don't even have to actually do it. Just tell her you ran down the street for 30 minutes and submit it. How hard can that be?
Yes, you
now,
did.
I'm not educated. I'm not trying to, you know, encourage her.
I got you. No, I'm good.
I'm just saying, like,
but the fact that she could not do that was
she was completely ignoring it. So, but when I'm looking at this, okay, her grade in math. Now Taylor's an AB student.
Right.
That's PE. PE was, you know, no activity. So we know that she had a flag. Right. That's exactly what I told her. I said, when I was in school, you got a flag. Okay. So that's what it was. Wow. Math, she had dropped from a B to, you know, 2-letter grades quickly.
Wow.
Quickly.
Yeah.
And her social studies grade had dropped. And I said, what is going on? You know, so I went to her and I'm looking, and she says, I'm asking her what are the challenges and so on. Well, for one, you know, this whole thing with the kids can come home with a textbook for math, right? But the basic instruction of the new math concepts, they're assigning them assignments for new concepts that the teacher has not taught them. So for her, now this is the difference. My son, private school, when there's a new concept introduced or a new lesson, he has a Zoom call. Okay, the teacher is on the Zoom call and walks them through what the assignment is. Okay, and then, but for my daughter who was public school in a different district, they get an email. It goes to the parents, it goes to the students. We get an email and, you know, this is what you're doing for the week. Any instruction, go to YouTube. There's a YouTube instructor that is walking you through this Common Core stuff. Whereas the kids are used to having that as a resource, right?
Correct.
But the additional piece to that is they can go to school 5 days a week and still sit in front of the teacher. The teacher will explain and introduce this new method or new concept that we're going to work on, new unit. Correct. Okay. During this pandemic, they're doing new stuff that they should have been introduced to in face-to-face contact. So now we've got a situation where her math grade has gone from a B to a D. How do we do that? So now I've got to try to talk her off a cliff because she's like, well, I'm stressing out. I don't know what to do. I don't understand it. And as a parent, I'm like, I don't know nothing about this kind of core stuff. So what am I supposed to do? Okay. So I think people started, you know, kind of confronting the school district about this. And then here they come with, well, we can't give them a grade lower than what their last report card grade was. Okay, I told my husband, I said, okay, we're gonna keep this to ourselves for right now. But I let her know, you know, they are working with you. Because in the midst of all of my investigation, I also discovered she was on YouTube. Okay. And so I didn't understand when we would be saying, you know, at 8:30, it's time to shower and get ready for bed. And she's saying, oh, but I still have work to do. I'm still working. How are you still working? And you've had your computer all day. So I do some research and checking. It's YouTube. She's watching YouTube videos. She's watching people play Roblox on YouTube.
You even knew what it was too. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So, you know, so we not only had to deal with her having anxiety and stress about the learning process, and, you know, dealing with her grades suffering. But to pass time during the day, at this point, I realize she's missing her friends. She's missing the communication. So while she's on Roblox and YouTube during the day, it's her and her friends communicating back and forth through the game. So she was missing that socialization piece. And that is how she was coping throughout the day because she's in our room all day. What is going on? Again, I've got my son in a different workspace. And I'm focused, okay, let's keep going, Clay. Come on, let's keep going. Never mind, I'm thinking my daughter is self-sufficient and she's good. Well, she needed my attention too. Those grades were suffering. She was on the internet, so I said, okay, time out. You're coming into this space too. I need you in front of me so I can see what you're doing. I need your brother in front of me so I can see what he's doing. Neither one of them like that. They hate it to this day because now while she's in there, she's got to listen to his Zoom calls. You know, so now she wears headphones. But, you know, at first it was torture for them.
Because usually I will tell people, you know what your boundaries are. You need to establish some boundaries. Like the kids are in the kitchen, dad's in the bedroom, and mom's in the living room, you know, doing a conference call because you guys are working while you're also teaching. And yet there are the realities that if you're in a 2-bedroom apartment, you can't go outside, that, you know, you got to work with what you have to work with. But I think that actually comes with the next question, which is, you know, during this pandemic, how are you allowing your child to, you know, react to the realities of what's happening? And I pose this to you, Shari, because it even steps in more to your story, that as your children are concerned about their grandmother being in the hospital, you're trying to balance the responsibilities of the school and trying to hold it down as a teacher at home. And, oh, by the way, you know, I do have a husband, you know, so that there's times when we need to make sure that we're holding down the house in itself. And, you know, I know that there was some challenges for you. Can you tell me how you allowed your children and yourself to kind of process literally the effects of the pandemic in your house?
With all that was going on with my mom and my lesson plans and the boys' lessons, and Seth, my 8-year-old, had so much, and he was crying, sleeping in the bed at night. Jordan, my 12-year-old, was just, you don't even care, you don't call. Why don't you call? I said, baby, she can't answer the phone. So my 8-year-old will go call my mom's cell phone. She would say, hi, Mama's on the phone. So him and my brother would go run in there and say, Mama, not realize it's a voice message. And they were like, she didn't answer the phone. So they will go back and Seth is just talking to her. I said, baby, you know, Mama's in the hospital. She can't, you know, talk right now. So then the nurses call us. And why my father made me the point person, I said, that's too much for me. I couldn't handle it. But he's like, oh, they said, name 3 people. Shari, you first, then me, and then my other son. So they were calling me about, okay, we need to give her some more medicine. I said, give her whatever, do whatever you can. And then they called and said, you know, she's gravely ill. I don't think she's going to make it. I said, we have faith. God works miracles. Devil is a lie. So I'm doing everything like, okay, Dad, well, baby, God talked to me. I said, oh, no. Okay, let me talk to somebody else. Nobody wanted to hear anything. And then that night, they said, she's not going to make it through the night. And we prayed. And I said, put her on the phone. So I tried to put her on this week. She's not going to look the same. She has a ventilator. I said, I just want to see her. So when I saw her, I just broke down. I said, okay, I'm not doing school anymore. My sons are done. So I went on sick leave for about a month. And she passed away Good Friday. So then I had to break it to the boys, and my 8-year-old just lost it. But I talked to her, she's on the phone. So he's thinking the cell phone represents her.
Yes.
And then my 12-year-old Jordan, he just broke down, didn't want to do anything. I don't want to live. I just want to, why? I pray. His big thing was, I prayed.
Yeah.
Why didn't? So he was angry with God.
Yeah.
And then he took all of his little Bible out of his room, his scriptures, his little cross. He's like, I'm done. He lied, he said. And I said, well, he loves her more than we do. You know, I was trying to help him. But I said, oh, this baby need counseling. The oldest one was like, well, you live, you die. And she's a spirit now. She's in the spirit realm. She's here right now. And then my 8-year-old was like, I don't want kids to go around. I said, oh, I can't deal with all of this. So we just need to breathe. I unplugged the phone. I said, no schoolwork. And we just needed to be for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just sit. And I said, I just need to sit. And, Mom, can we come to TV? I said, no, we just need to sit. We have that family meeting. So we had a family meeting, and my sons were telling me how they felt. And they said, it's not fair. And my middle child, the 12-year-old, wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't say anything, just quiet. And I said, you want to say anything, Jordan? No, I'm mad at you know who. And I said, do you want to talk? I don't want to talk about it. So, and Seth was just sitting there with his hand sanitizer, and I said, okay, we got to breathe. So I said, we need to talk about something bothering you. So I made sure they had like a open space, like we need to pray together. We need to be grateful. What are you grateful for? Name 3 things you're grateful for. And they, what? I said, name 3 things you're grateful for. And my 12, Jordan, you just wanted me to say something good about God, but I won't. He took Mama. And I said, well, coronavirus, but they said it was just the flu. So they're thinking, they're listening to TV reports in school. They said, are we ever going to go back to school? And I said, you know, we're not thinking about that now. I'm taking 2 weeks, yada, yada, yada. My dad called me. He's like, Shar, I need you to write the obituary. I said, oh, my goodness. I'm just trying to breathe for 2 weeks. No, you need to do it. Because we called around. That was real bad. We called around about 15 funeral homes. We don't do corona. No.
Yes, and that's when we found out how there are so many people that are passing away, and they're not allowed to grieve because they can't do that final process. As a matter of fact, my father passed away on April 24th, and we had to fly back to Phoenix. And it was such a trauma just to experience all of that during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and how limited they were, how much, the limitations of having a funeral. We actually had an outside service, and I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you and how they only allowed 10 people, and they could video record it. And so, I go back to saying, I want you guys to know that whatever the struggles you're dealing with, they're real, and there's an honest grieving process. That, some of our kids are grieving the fact that they can't see their friends. They're actually grieving physical loss.
Yeah.
And by the way children show up when they have loss is so different than parents. Like, Seth is sitting there, obsessive compulsively washing his hands, right? Then you've got, Jordan with this defiance and this righteous indignation. And then, you've got Jay, but to each of them have a different age, and it's going to show up differently. It's going to be a process. Well, even for you, Shari, right? As it relates to you taking time off, we need to be able to care. That self-care has to happen. You can't just assume I'm just going to keep it pushing.
No.
But actually, the reality is that's what we do as a people. We drop babies in the field and, cut the umbilical cord, pick them up, and keep working. And so there's times where we need to give ourselves space, especially in 2020, because these folks will burn you out, and you'll be keeping it going and wondering what's going on. I don't know why she's having a manic moment right now. I don't know why she's losing it right now. And so you realize that there's something to that you do need to take care of yourself. So I commend you that you made that decision to take a break from teaching and take care of your family and take care of yourself.
And that wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In reality, you're like, okay, I need to pay mortgage, I have to pay student loan payments. You don't think about, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and I'm just going to be. And then when you come back, you're like, oh no, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. 100 emails from parents saying, where are you? Where did I? What happened? And I'm like, oh. So then that was more stress.
Yeah.
And then I started, I won't even sleep. I think I didn't start sleeping again until Memorial Day. I would be up all day helping them with their assignments, trying to figure out, okay, this is this. I get a card in the mail. Okay, I need to respond to that person. Thank you for your thoughtful words and kind words. Then flip around and try to be there for Jay, Jordan, and Seth. And then I'm like, oh yeah, Joe's over there. You're good.
Yeah.
My husband's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
He's good. This is more important. Yeah. It just puts a lot on top of it. It's a lot.
So, a quick point. We talked about the pandemic a little bit. How are you guys doing with the Black Lives Matter protests? How is that being worked out in your homes right now? Or
Well, for us, we've allowed time to talk to the kids about what's going on. I think I watch the news every morning, so I never had an opportunity to kind of introduce, what was going on properly to the kids. Because as I'm watching the news, one wakes up and they come into the room and say, hey, good morning or whatever. And Ahmaud Arbery is on the news. And so my daughter Taylor said, who is he or what happened to him? And so that's how the conversation started with her. And then, so initially we started having individual conversations, with her by herself, and then Clayton. We allowed them to kind of have the questions come to us first with the questions. Because we were unsure how we wanted to approach the topic, because I myself was so emotional, so, full of rage and anger.
Yeah.
I needed to make sure that how I approached the topic with the kids didn't convey that anger, to the extent that it was, when you walk outside of this door, this is how you need to perceive all white people.
Correct.
And this is how you need to confront white people when you see them. So I wanted to be very careful with that. So for me, it took a little while, to be honest. how I addressed and how I approached and even talked about those things in the current situation with our kids.
But I think that's healthy though, because if you don't know
Yeah,
the position you want to go with,
yeah,
they take their emotional temperature, by the way,
yes,
as a
yeah,
by how their
Yeah.
parents.
yeah,
Where's your temperature?
yeah.
Your emotional temperature,
Yeah.
right?
Like Friday, I was really emotional Friday. And so as they pass me or whatever, and they see tears, and they fed off of that.
Yeah.
So the questions came. And so I think the organic questions and, just allowing them to, if they see us or hear us having a conversation and they ask questions, then we all engage in the conversation. Now, my husband right now is at a rally with my son in Seattle. And we got up this morning, we made posters and, all of that. And so, he wanted to be a part of it, but because of his learning issues, sometimes we have to be very, very explicit and direct when we, introduce things to him, because he will understand it to be something different. So figuratively and literally, he struggles with some forms of language, the way we word things and stuff. So we have to be very careful with that. Stressing all white people are not bad. All white police officers are not bad, because in spite of what you're seeing on television. And so we really didn't want him to get confused.
Yeah, I actually saw on TV where a white police officer was talking to, she probably might have been 5, maybe 6, and she had asked him, "Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to hurt me?" And this white police officer kneeling down to her level, right up in her face, lifted up his guard and saying, "No, baby, we're not. It's okay for you to be here. We can have a party. We can talk. We can discuss." And I think that there's a balance that we need to have with our kids, so that we don't give them so much fear that they're afraid to go to someone that can help them, but also have some level of what I want to say, discernment to know, okay, that this is not a safe place for me, and where's my mom, where's my dad, right? So, Shari, how are you handling those conversations?
My 8, we had a family meeting, and then they said, Mom, because we could hear it off the house, and people would hear marching and Black Lives Matter, and the kids run to the window and they're looking and waving. Why are we out there? What's going on? Who's Breonna Taylor? Who's George Floyd? That's what it said. That's a hashtag. And I said, oh, okay, let's have a family meeting. And they're like, oh, let's have a family meeting. So they're like, we didn't do anything. I said, oh, see, family meetings are about talking about issues. So then we talk about, well, this happened and this happened. And, a lot of, not all people, we kept saying not all people.
Yes.
And then they were listening to me, and then they directed everything to my husband. Maybe, Dad, what happened when you were growing up in the town? What did they do to you? Dad, what did... And he's like, well, this did happen. I'm like, but everything is not. So I'm like, peaches and cream. And he's like, well, we have to look, if someone stops you, supposed to, what we say, they're like, look them in the eye, put your hands, it's because we already had that conversation with them. And that's put your hands to your side, and you're 8, and Seth knew everything. And put your hands to your side, don't seem aggressive, don't seem angry. Sit there and smile. Even if you're angry, just grit your teeth and say, yes, officer.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, everyone has all that down. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm having to tell my Black sons how to respond in the world today.
Yes.
I said, okay, fine.
But if not, then who does? Or they get it on the negative side of that.
Exactly.
Right?
My 14-year-old came and said, Mom, look at our social studies lesson today. So they had a Zoom meeting. Jay, how do you feel? How are you feeling? In front of all you see is these little squares. And Jay's like, Mom, he had the camera off. He said, I should tell him. It's not my responsibility. I said, you tell him that. And he said, there's only 2 African-American kids in the classroom. I said,
that's okay.
Tell them, but I don't want to seem like I'm being angry. I said, Jay, are you there? Tell us how you feel. What can we do to help you during this time? So he's just, I said, tell him how you feel. So he puts the camera on. He said, I don't think it's my responsibility to make you feel comfortable right now. I have my feelings, you have your feelings.
Amen.
So we're done
Tell
with
it
this
like it is.
conversation. But what is the social studies lesson today? They just looked and everybody, he said, you don't need to be so aggressive. We just want to be here for you. And he says, I already told you how I felt. I think we should do the lesson. It's not about me. I should help you feel comfortable. It's not my job to make you feel comfortable. I'm 14. We understand. Let's have a moment of quietness and silence for Jay and all the Black Lives Matter protests out there.
What the what?
And
Okay.
and Jay looks at me, he turns the camera, he looks at me, he said, Mom, I said, don't, just breathe. That's their way of making them feel comfortable.
Yes.
But
Yes.
he was livid. He was trying not to be livid.
Correct.
And
Correct.
he cuts the camera back on. Okay, thank you for sharing, Jay. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to say? Kids are just sitting there like, they get went right over their head. They're like, no, next.
Yeah.
And he was like, they don't even care. He just said that because. So he was like getting upset. He was more upset about it than.
Yeah.
He's like, they're being extra, Mom. They're being
like
extra. And they're trying to act like they're, oh, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And then no one said anything like, I'm sorry. No, it wasn't sincere. And I said, sometimes it's like that. But we need to make sure our sons and daughters, even the ones in my classroom, same thing. Parents, are you going to make this about you? All lives matter. They were coming at me like that. And I said,
really?
You know what?
Really?
We are not. I said, I will not be talking about what's going social. It's up to your family to share that news. Yeah. And a lot of people, but you're the Black teen. You should tell them how you feel. You should do this. You should do that. All lives matter. Blue lives matter. They came at 25 shows. I came like 15, 16 different emails about, it's not about you. It's about, I said, oh, so I had to keep, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's unfortunate. Here are some resources that you can look at. I gave them resources, NAACP, Urban League. I was like, Clark Atlanta, you write a website about talking with students about, I even gave them the CNN Sesame Street.
How about that? Let's go back to Sesame Street.
How to deal with racism. You know, so it's all the way down to look, okay. I said, the book, read aloud, I'm going to read it by Peter Heller's Say Something. But it's like, oh, if you have a voice, say something. It had like little signs. I said, I will not be talking about this subject during the class meeting. This is your responsibility as a parent. Wow. They were still, you should say something. You should say something. You should take a picture of yourself with the protest sign to give our kids hope and see our teachers in the protests. I said, unfortunately, that will not be able to happen. Like I said in the previous email, please deal with, I was like, no, because they wanted me to,
take the responsibility.
She'll take responsibility. Yeah,
right.
Here, you go teach our kids about that. And look, and then I started getting signs. This is us at the park on their bikes doing like this. And I said, oh,
I need you to.
It took all my energy not to reply back.
Right,
like, okay, thanks for the pic. Thanks for the pic. That's all I kept saying. Thanks for the pic. I got 7 emails of them with Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter signs downtown. I said, I'm just going to thank you for the pic. That's all I said. I didn't go into detail. Even though inside I'm like, get ready to explode.
Absolutely.
But we always have to put that mask on, like, oh, like this. Oh, yeah, I'm fine. No. And then my son got a whiff of it this time, and I said, he said, well, why do I have to do that all the time? I said, that unfortunately, that he's like, other people don't have to deal with what I have to deal with. I always have to sit there and smile and act like it doesn't bother me. I feel like a volcano inside. I said, let your feelings out. You can draw, color. So he plays the trumpet. He just forgot playing trumpet. I said, well, that's how you get your self-care.
Because I tell you, as we're part of this video is about celebrating Juneteenth and how, it took us 3 years after 4th of July to have our own independence and how we had to rally and celebrate for ourselves. And so can you see when we are burdened with the responsibility of not just educating our own children of how to be safe within a white world, but also how they're expecting us to educate their children about being around other people of color. And I commend you both for educating your children, but also empowering them to know It is not my responsibility to educate you on the fundamentals of American history.
Right.
And believe it or not, just because your American history books have strategically omitted us does not then dictate that I need to be your history book.
Yes.
I think there needs to be an us and a them, and it's us and them, not us or them.
Yes.
Right.
And so the responsibility of you educating your children on what race is about, and I think that there's a real struggle in Seattle specifically because we make the comment that, you know, if you live in Columbia City, you know that it's the most diverse city in the entire world. And yes, that's one freaking city in the state of Washington.
4 blocks.
And we need everybody to be educated because this is a very, I want to say, transient kind of state, kind of like Arizona. Arizona was a very transient state. So you had all kinds of people going in and out of there. And yet there was a lot of disparity as it related to race. Well, it just seems to be wrapped in a nice bow as it relates to Washington. And so I think that as Juneteenth comes up, it should be even more celebrated about how this is our Independence Day.
Yes.
And that's what it does mean. And maybe just like we take off July 4th, we just might take off, June 19th.
Right.
And celebrate
Yes.
ourselves. And I think from a mental health perspective, it is very important for you to let your children be able to express themselves. Let them know that their anger is valid, and then ask them what do they need to move forward? How do they need to be empowered to say, I have options? So no, blowing up in front of the teacher so they can see a mad black man or a mad black woman. We have way too many movies that recite that stuff. And so now they just think, oh, the moment we have bass in our voice, oh, there's that angry black woman. I need to be afraid. And I think it's nonsense because you can be angry and shout and curse at me at work and I'm supposed to be okay.
Yes.
So there is something about how the best of us shows up in a way that has some integrity to it, and that you don't let your personhood be taken away because someone else wants to feel better about themselves.
Yes.
I would say, I would add to, as it relates to the kids specifically, and empowering them during this time. We moved here in the spring of 2017, and in the suburban area, and over time we saw just not a negative change in our daughter, but where she just did not feel like she fit in. The area in which we live, the education is supposed to be, really good. But the diversity is high.
Yes.
But not reflective of African Americans.
Yeah.
We had in our particular school, we had 52, 53% Asian, and Islanders or Indian was just beneath, and then white, and then African American. So in our area, that diversity, you could tell it made white people very uncomfortable. And in particular, in the school, it made people very uncomfortable. So, that's 2017, 18. I didn't really, my son did not have a good year in second grade. There was a lot of, he had an IEP, which is the individual educational plan for students that have special learning issues and needs, whether it be educational, emotional, what have you. And we had him, just a little background, I had him privately evaluated for the reason and the fear that so many parents of color, specifically Black parents, have when they have their children evaluated in the public school system. Often you are quickly labeled ADHD, behavioral, hyperactive, whatever, as opposed to anything else. So what we found in his IEP and his evaluation is that a lot of his what may seem as behavioral issues are attributed to his academic and learning issues. There, you know, the behavior part comes into what is your how's he coping?
Sure.
So with that in mind, second grade, he was just there was a lot of back and forth to the office. A lot of he's doing this, he's doing that. If he's engaging with another student and whatever, but a lot of it was put on him.
He's got a behavior problem.
There was a lack of empathy, I thought. And that tag, that label, African American boy, special needs, IEP, immediately, even as an educator, you get that in your file before school starts, you automatically, and sadly enough, for white teachers, they see that and they wonder, is this going to be a behavior problem child? And so I feared that, so I homeschooled him. I homeschooled him for third grade. During this particular year that I homeschooled him, my daughter was in 5th grade. I was asked to participate in a diversity panel with his school. It included the entire staff, which was all white. But the principal was a very inclusive and very active administrator. And so he had goals to really, he saw what was happening. He watched the behaviors of parents and staff and how we engaged as one, with one another. He saw the segregation. You picking up your kids and, you got a group here, a group there. The Asian parents are there. The Black parents not even getting out of the cars. We just keep going, because we, I tried that. I tried getting out of my car and standing on the sidewalk when my kids first started, and I felt unwelcome. And so I felt that I was different. It didn't matter what car I drove. It didn't matter what bag I had, how nicely cleaned up I was, how presentable my kids are, how mannerable my kids are. It didn't matter. They'd already decided. So when I participated in this panel, the discussion was basically, they asked a lot of different questions. And 2 of our staff members were a part of the district diversity group. And so, this is at a time 2 years ago, we had some really hectic stuff going on in our district. And so there was a lot of activity, and so they were really trying to find answers. And I was very candid with them in talking about what our experience has been. Our Asian counterparts were talking about, when we don't speak, a lot of it is cultural. So when they don't speak to us and you speak to them culturally, for Chinese and Korean families, they don't even talk to each other when they're on the street and they're passing each other. So culturally, it's not a disrespect to you. They don't do the in passing and conversing and exchanging. Indian families, why do they stand so close to you in the grocery store and you're in the line or whatever? Well, in these countries where, they have, millions of people, they're all getting on transportation at the same time, they're used to being close spaces. So, we were learning a lot about each other. But in asking me specifically about African American experience, because the conversation kind of took a turn where they were asking more of the Asian families.
You don't want to know about the Black folks.
And so the lead teacher of this diversity group, he asked specifically for me to talk about my experience as an African American parent in their district. And so I shared with him. I said, I get followed in stores. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I said, to this day, in this district, in this city, in this area, our neighbors don't speak to us really. They instead look at you, Why are you here? And they will be frank. What do you do? Especially when they see that the mom is not leaving home.
Yes.
You know, you can't be a person of color, an African American woman, and you are not leaving home.
Yeah.
And you're in a nice home or what have you.
Yeah.
What do you do? What you know, what is your life story or whatever?
Define yourself.
Define yourself. And so, you know, that was my experience, but I addressed specifically with them because I really wanted them to understand, as a parent of an African American child in a predominantly white institution of learning, what our experience had been in their school, in your school. You know, I said last year my son had a horrible year. I mean, and we're in the front of a room. The entire room is white.
Wow.
And at that moment, I was like, Lord, I need all types of strength because, you know, it was one of those things where you either sink or swim. And I was just like, I'm just going to say it. You know, I'm just going to let them know.
Nothing to lose.
I have nothing to lose. This man outright asked me. He outright asked me, he said, Ms. Hurt, he said, can you just talk about your African American experience in our area? And he wanted to know. And I told him, I said, you know, I really think that, you know, our Black boys, being a Black boy, special learning, you know, those things, one strike is you're Black. 2, he's a boy. 3, he has an IEP and he has special learning differences. Already the cards are stacked against him before he even walked into a classroom. So he can, you know, he can have an off day and have a disagreement with a student or a peer. But his outburst and his, you know, emotion is going to be reviewed differently than his white peer, okay, that he's had a disagreement with. And so, you know, that I said that in itself for a parent is very it's hard, it's frustrating, it's disheartening. I said because by before the end of the year, my son was saying, I don't want to go to school. I hate school. I don't want to go because they don't like me. And he's in 2nd grade and he's feeling that he is different. He already knows that he has some learning differences and he learns different from his peers. But to feel like you're different because of the color of your skin, you're being treated differently in 2nd grade because of the color of your skin. And these are adults treating you this way. You know, I volunteered, and I was a parent that volunteered twice a week in this school.
Wow.
They saw me all the time. I volunteered for the Heritage Festival. They had never had an African American presentation of the Heritage Festival. And so I asked a friend that represented Haiti, that's Haitian. I said, can you come and represent Haiti? And so they got all types of information about the African American culture. I found cotton and put it on the table. Oh, I've never seen cotton before. You know, my sweet potato pie, now that was funny. My sweet potato pie, put that on the table.
We know about
pumpkin pie. No.
Black people do not eat squash pie. We eat sweet potato pie. And there is a clear difference. Even though some of us will eat your squash pie. And thank you so much for the experience. But there you go.
They enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. But that, I just wanted to say that was a moment that, you know, for me and my family over the last 3 years, this thing of telling our story and speaking on our experience, being Black and treated differently, you know, since we've been here, we've been doing that. And so now it's like, do you hear us now? So it can happen in downtown Seattle. It can be in Columbia City, but it's happening in the suburbs too. And people are turning a deaf ear and a blind eye to it.
So we're back, and I think we're going to take a little shift right now and just kind of talk about some of the things that you guys do as parents for self-care. I've heard an awful lot of really dynamic ways in which you show up for your children, in which you show up for work, in which you're actually building a business. And so can you talk to me a little bit about some of the things that kind of keep you centered so that you don't completely lose your mind up in here, right? Can you help me out a little bit with that? Yeah.
Board games is our friend.
Okay.
Monopoly, Taboo, Jenga. That's their favorite because they like to compete. The boys like to compete. We go outside. They like to play basketball. I don't like to play basketball that much, but I'll play with them. And then I play with Seth, and then Joe, Jay, and Jordan are against us. So I said, that's fine. We were going walking, but it came into Seth isn't ready for walking yet. We were like, take the mask. You don't need it's airborne. So we're just like, let's walk to the bakery today. I didn't need my mask. So he's still going through his anxiety a little bit. So we're taking that in consideration. But we'll walk around the block or we'll walk up to the bakery. We were watching movies, but I thought they were spending too much screen time. So I said, no. Because they've been on the computer all day, then they want to sit and look at Netflix. And I said, no, we'll watch they want to see Star Wars, Mandalorian. And I said, well, I'll look at an episode with you, but I didn't. I was like, why does he never take his, I was asking, they're like, shh. So I said, okay, it's family time, popcorn. But they're like, Mom, don't ask questions, you ask questions at the end. I'm like, oh, look at the baby. They're like, shh. And I'm like, baby Yoda, I want that for Christmas. They were like, be quiet. But
isn't it interesting that they have rules for the parents? Okay, watching a movie. Okay, I have no comment.
I know. We just try to do little fun things together. Just in the home, not
right. But what are you doing for you? I hear you telling me how the kids are doing stuff, right? But what are you doing?
I have to have a me time. I always tell them I need an hour of me time. Sometimes they'll give me longer. I go in my room, close the door, and I just either pray, or I'll read a book, or I'll read my Yala Vinzant, or I'll read another empowerment book, just to be. No TV, no phone, anything. I need to do that daily. Now I've been starting to take baths and candle. That's how I took a bath, almost drowned. That's how much.
Okay, all right.
I'm not doing that because I got so comfortable. I went to sleep and went to. Ooh. I said.
I could. Okay.
So baths are out.
Well, baths are out. You can go get some of that sudsy stuff that you can put in the shower, and it actually steams it up in the shower, and it smells really good. Now, the reason why I say that is because most of my mothers do not know how to give themselves a timeout. We can give time out to our kids all day long and go over there and meditate in the corner.
Yes.
But we struggle with actually having our own time. How about you, Tanisha?
I think
tell me some more.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Okay. So probably week 3, I think I was very close to a nervous breakdown. I was over it. I was doing, the laundry. I was cleaning up the house because, now I used to do a pretty good job because everybody's gone to work, gone to school, so you could keep stuff, pretty tight. Now that everybody's home, including the husband, it was like, okay, socks everywhere and stuff, so I was very close. And this homeschool thing, I was over it. And I was snapping at everybody.
Right.
So emotionally, and then I looked at myself. One day I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I don't even look like myself.
Wow.
I didn't even look like myself. So at least 2 days a week, I said, okay, I'm going to get up and put lipstick on. I'm going to do my hair.
Right.
I'm going to get dressed as though I have somewhere to go. Now, I'm not fully dressed, but even if I'm in yoga pants and a t-shirt, I'm putting on earrings and lipstick and some mascara. I don't have on makeup, but just something to uplift myself, because I was like, the bags, I looked angry, I looked frustrated, stressed, like it was all there on me. So that's one thing that I do. I said I needed to do, even with us being home. get up, do something different with my hair. And if I'm not, you know, this is just you, Shirley. So
Thank you, Lovey.
you know, but,
Both of y'all looking like the cutest,
Yeah.
so I appreciate it. You got it going on. See, that's why I said that we're going to do a social distancing, you know, kind of group talk, women's get together, because I know that people are not getting together. And
yeah,
yes, we were very responsible. Thank you very much. As they even came in, you know, we had the 6 feet, so no worries. We're not trying to pass nothing on, because we already have enough Black people dying of COVID than the average white or non-white person. So we're taking care of that. But I do appreciate you looking cute and smelling fresh. I appreciate that.
yeah, a cute head wrap, or
Hey,
you know,
hey.
and some earrings, and you're good.
There you go.
You know, polishing nails, or a bath, taking a bath,
But
and
not too much water.
yeah,
Yeah, no.
not too much water. And
I'm sorry.
Don't have my mishap.
Hello. Continue.
I'm
Continue.
trying to think what else I've done. Painting. My son and I, we love to paint, so I ordered off Amazon paint, acrylic paint, and canvases, like just an 8.5 by 11 canvas, and so we have a ton of those, like they came in a stack.
Yeah.
And so he and I will paint. My daughter will paint, or draw. So that has really been relaxing for me. But when I need to step away from everyone, I will just close the door and
Put
go
your
take
do
a
not
nap.
disturb
do
sign.
not disturb sign, or
Do some mindfulness activities and
yeah,
be done.
yeah.
Mhm.
I just unplug.
Yeah.
I will unplug.
So I will tell you that it's also a good thing if you can do some journaling about your thoughts. The thing is that you have, you know, quite aware children right now that could probably find your journal, and, you know, you might be trying to stress and talk about your own. Never mind. The bottom line is, it's good to get things out of your head and onto a piece of paper, because that's how the worry and the anxiety actually builds. And so it's really helpful for you to do that for yourself, but also to encourage your children as well, right? To kind of, hey, why don't you write down how you've been feeling today? You may not want to say it to me, but you can write it down, and then you can pull out some of the words that keep showing up to you time and time again, because that's how you validate, yeah, I have a right to feel that way.
Yes.
Right? The challenge we often have, like in the mental health field, is that we're trying to get people to allow their emotions to come to the surface so that you can take a look at them. And what I like to do is keep asking the question, why? Well, I'm upset because grandma passed away. Well, why? Because she was my friend and I loved hanging out with her and hearing her voice. Well, why? And because I realized I'm actually not going to see her. And so then you get to the point of you asking yourself, asking your child, okay, so what are your options about that? Well, I can remember her in a wonderful way. I can remember all the stories that she would tell me, right? So that she's still alive in their spirits. And so when I think about your middle son and the level of disappointment he has with God, is that, it's you really talking about how you have lost your ability to control your environment, right? Which is where the worry comes in. Or you feel helpless and hopeless, which is where the depression comes in. So you want to see those signs in your children, but honestly, you want to see those signs in yourself, so that if you do need a professional like myself, then you know where to go reach out and get that help, whether it's through your school. Your school should have some resources to refer your children to. And most importantly, seek out some of the resources that you have where your husbands have insurance, either going through their insurance and finding out, what your options are. And I know that there's a challenge, because I hear that as a mental health counselor, that there's a shortage per se of African-American males and females in the industry. And yet we are out there, and we can provide you some resources to whether if we're busy or can't get to your situation, that we can refer you to some people that we trust as counselors that can feel and understand the dynamics of what the African American family is experiencing in this day and time. Because I do get that complaint from people that, hey, I went to a non-African American counselor and they couldn't understand why my son was so bothered that he didn't have friendships in his school. When, there's 35 kids in his classroom, pick a friend. Yeah, but when they don't look black like me, that's not just something I can do.
Right.
And that's an honest struggle that we have in this industry right now that we are trying to meet. And I do know that at times there's a finance issue at times, but you can go to NAMI.org and get some support there. You can go to, there's a website called Mental Health America that also is, a resource for our children, for ourselves, to get the help we need so that you can, my whole goal is each one reach one. And I do know that we've got that stigma of, hey, I can't let nobody know that I'm getting help. But the reality is, if we can get help sooner, it becomes another self-care method. Going to see a counselor is a way for you to take care of yourself. It's a gift that you literally give yourself. And yes, I do know that we've got the challenges with even getting help from a medical perspective, let alone getting help from a mental health perspective, right? It's just now coming into being somewhat of a thing, right? But when you think that the entire population of America has, is 13% African American, right? That's 7 million people, and some of those individuals are going to need help either from an educational perspective as it relates to your child, or from just processing loss as it relates to your family. And so hopefully you can find, that you can find that there is help for you, that you don't need to sit there and suffer alone. We do that whole what goes on in the house stays in the house thing. And it has actually never helped us as a body, as a race, because then we hold in anxiety, depression, anger, and then it doesn't take much. And now we're dealing with, all kinds of things that are hindering our advancement in business, our advancement at our jobs, and what we don't want to do is pass down these generational curses from one family to the next family as if they don't exist. So I commend both of you for really doing some due diligence in your own homes and in your professions. Bless you and thank you, so much for being a part of this discussion about how we handle the pandemic as parents. And you've done an exceptional job. I do commend you, because it's not easy being Black and being in America today. And because of the diversity, because our children are going into now getting a degree and some getting second degrees, and yet struggling with being African American, that just does not seem like it's right. And yes, each one of us needs to stand up and be our authentic self. So I commend both of you for doing that. And we just thank you today for listening in with us. We appreciate that you could listen in on our stories and our adventures, our challenges, and yet our successes. Because you know what? Everything that's going on with us is not bad. But we do need to confront the challenges in our lives. And so we hope and pray that this discussion has been a benefit for you. And we look forward to, at some point, meeting in the next opportunities. Take care and God bless. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know you have fun. Okay, let's face it, people. History has not been really kind to African Americans and mental health. And there are two examples that come to mind for me that kind of frame why we struggle with mental health, other than the colonization, the enslavement of our people, and how that has affected us. And those two examples are, one is the Tuskegee Experiment, where they took 400 African American men that had syphilis and they didn't treat it.
and then they tracked that from like 1932 to almost 1970 something before President Clinton actually acknowledged and then said, "Hey, that was wrong," and made an apology. And by that time, that 400 number had went down to literally there were only 72 alive. And then there are histories where as early as 1870, where there was actually a Negro insane hospital where they were experimenting against their will, African Americans, and finding out different ways to kind of torture and evaluate them. So imagine from one generation to the next, those stories and those traumas have been passed down to our children, to grandchildren, to great grandchildren. But I actually have seen a shift over the last 15 years where African American people are actually trying to find a way to connect with a counselor, specifically trying to find Black counselors that can relate to their struggle. One of the challenges that I've had as a mental health counselor is trying to connect with those individuals and let them know that, look, it's going to take more than 3 sessions. And that when they come into counseling, that this whole idea that they need to be fixed is not the answer. It's really about exploring where their trauma comes from, where their pain comes from, what's causing their anxiety and depression, so that they can be empowered to do the work that they need to do. Now, there are some outward stigmas that have been connected because of our history with mental health and our history with medical challenges within the United States. And so I'd like to bring up some of those for you. The first one is, hey, I don't want to talk about my private business. You know, that whole concept of what goes on in the house stays in the house. The trouble with that is now you don't actually get help. You're actually kind of feeding the dysfunction, is a better word of it, because we don't want to talk about what's going on in our lives because somehow someone's going to find out. We're not strong enough. We're not bold enough to hold on to our stuff. We're finding, though, that as we hold on to that stuff, it's actually showing up dysfunctionally in other ways. We have anger management issues at work. We're explosive with our children. And so now we have all these CPS issues. So you have all those issues that kind of show up as to why people aren't getting the help they need. Another one is the idea that the counselor is going to make it or think that they're crazy. When in actuality, one of the best things that you can do as an individual is to care for yourself enough to get help. The kindest thing you can do is identify where you're struggling, where those triggers are that cause you to struggle, and find healthy coping skills, okay? The next one is the fear of judgment, that people are going to think that there's something wrong with you, that, you know, you don't want anybody to know that you're going to counseling because somehow it makes you weak. It makes you feel like you're not a upstanding, you know, healthy, positive person. But we're finding time and time again, putting those masks on and pretending like everything is fine. At some point, we have to take the mask off and we find where our real trauma, where our real anxiety actually lies. And believe it or not, if you can catch some of these challenges early, it's far more healthy for you. You can see some recovery, you can be positive, and you can be empowered to move forward and not stay in a place where you're stuck. The next is kind of that hesitancy or the unnecessary need for counseling. Like, really? Who needs to go to counseling? Why can't we just pray this through? Why can't I just get with a bunch of friends and kind of move this on? In actuality, I'll tell you, as you stay with the same group of people that are talking about the same dysfunctions, you can't move out of that space because you're only as helpful as the person that has the information that you need. So in other words, you're feeding each other the same trouble, the same trauma, and the same dysfunction. Counseling helps in that way because it gives you different ways of seeing your situation, different ways of kind of approaching maybe the problems that you're having with your children or with your partner, or even those challenges that you're having at work. And so when you can get a if you can get an opinion outside of the same group that you're in, it's far more healthier, and it also allows you to move out of the square that you placed yourself in. Another example is just being afraid that if you go to a counselor that you'll somehow be admitted into the hospital because there's really something wrong with you. Well, I will tell you this. If you are really struggling with some type of, ADHD or anxiety or bipolar, any of those items where it might be helpful for you to have some type of medication, it's not a bad idea to partner your counselor with your doctor so that you can have healthy ways of kind of moving forward. Uh, there are times when you need to take something that will take the edge off so that you can think clearly. And by the way, some of the medicinal things that we do where we are self medicating often don't work at all. They only give you a temporary fix, and now you've got another issue on top of the actual the core problem. Another consideration that people have a stigma with is, if I go see a counselor, will they actually make it relevant to me? Will they be able to connect with me in a way that says, oh, you get my struggle, you get my pain, and you see how you can help me? And actually, that's just time and attention to understanding your journey and the process that you're taking on. That's what a good counselor should do for you. And by the way, each of us are different and unique. We use different theories, we use different therapeutic alliances in order to get to the place where you feel comfortable sitting in your space and sitting with your counselor. Now, last but not least, there's the whole concept of just the lack of knowledge as it relates to counseling. Many people come in and they're expecting to lay down on my couch and, kind of talk about their childhood to the present day. And as I stated before, everybody's process, everybody's way of doing counseling is different. I'm a relational counselor. So we have a conversation. We're sitting in my office that pretty much looks like you're sitting in my living room. And we're talking, we're having a dialogue about your story, about your journey, so that you can get to a place where you can even hear yourself going, wow, that doesn't sound healthy. Or, yeah, you know what? I am doing some of the right stuff for myself. And so imagine all of these stigmas kind of affect how people see and view counseling. And so I'm hoping that you can challenge yourself in those areas so that you can get the help that your son needs, your daughter needs, your husband needs, your wife needs, what I need in order to be healthy and whole. Imagine that counseling is a gift that you give yourself and that you're worth it. And you're worth the time and the attention it takes to be a more solid and whole person.